Good morning. Helena Harris here. My glasses are crooked. I'm such a dork. Okay, so I am completely new to doing video. Some of you may recognize my voice from my podcast, The Stall and Stable Show, which was running for 6 or 7 years. And that was subsequent to my role as a co-founder of the Horse Radio Network. So I was one of the first podcast hosts and producers of podcasts in the equestrian space, period. In fact, my good friend Glenn Hebert and I had the very first podcast in the equestrian industry, and that was the Talking Equine Show. And it was sponsored by Bitter Britain. So shout out to John Nunn, who was really instrumental in helping support this new technology that is now everywhere in our industry. And yay for that, because podcasting has brought so much information to horse enthusiasts in from entertainment to education, flat out information. So yay for podcasting. But having done that for 15 years, as well as serve as a stable consultant for all sorts of clients over the years, I got a little burned out from producing my own podcast. And so I decided to go back to school for a number of reasons, but primarily to help promote the welfare of horses. And so I went back to school to Penn Vet. I'm doing a Master of Science degree there in animal welfare and behavior. And of course, my species of choice is horses, well, equids, actually. So, which includes donkeys, mules, and the occasional zebra, wild ass. So I'm doing this little video here today just to introduce myself to you and to kind of explain what I'm going to be doing going forward. And so right now I'm involved in research, mostly in equine cognition and behavior. I am looking at how training methods affect a horse's emotional state and how the combination of those two things affect learning outcomes, learning and performance outcomes. Because at the end of the day, a horse's welfare is compromised by their human interaction or their interaction with humans. And that often takes place in the form of training and handling. And most traditional training and handling methods have relied heavily on negative reinforcement and positive punishment. So those are two aversive methods of teaching an animal anything. And what we would like to do, we, our behavioral scientists, would like to shift the industry away from relying so heavily on aversive training methods and focus more on positive ones or appetitive stimuli, so we geeky behavior people like to call it. So what I'm going to try to do is incorporate some little videos here, and I want to bridge the gap between scientific language and practical application of training and handling horses. Because sometimes the ideal of science just doesn't translate to real life. It's like we can't get there because either we have to put food on the table or horses haven't read the book and they don't know, they haven't learned the science themselves. There's always some kind of anomaly in real life. And so what I want to do is bridge the gap between what we should be doing to have good learning outcomes in horses and to preserve their welfare, especially their emotional well-being, and what real life looks like and what we can do to change the way we train and keep horses so that everybody's happier. That's really a very simplified way of looking at it. And so in this first video, I'm just going to do very quick introduction to how learning happens in horses. And to help you understand it in the simplest terms possible, I'm going to use the ABCs. And I'm also going to introduce a few scientific terms. A, B, C. That's how horses learn. Okay, that's pretty much how all mammals learn. A means antecedent, the thing that comes before B, which is the behavior we want. And C is the consequence of the behavior happening. So A is the antecedent, B is the behavior, C is the consequence. The consequence reinforces the behavior, at least when we're using reinforcement methods. That's another video. But so just remember A, B, and C. A is the antecedent. That is also your cue or aid. Okay? That's the stimulus we give the animal. That's their cue. They perform the behavior that we want. That's B. And C is the consequence of what happens immediately after they perform the behavior we want. When we use negative reinforcement, that's pressure and release, the C is the release. Okay, so pressure and release. Let's just say putting our leg on a horse and asking him to go forward. The antecedent or the aid is the slight squeeze or pressure of your leg on the horse's barrel. The horse moves away from that pressure because, it's a little uncomfortable. Even if it's just annoying, it's considered aversive. So the behavior is that they move forward. You release the pressure from your leg. That is the consequence. So that release of pressure, it gives them relief from that annoying pressure of their leg. Okay, that release is the consequence. So the antecedent is your leg aid, a little bit of pressure. B, the behavior is they walk forward. And C is the consequence, which is the relief they find once they perform the behavior. So everything in horse training, everything is A, B, and then C. So when we do something, when we give a horse a cue of any kind, we're asking them to perform a specific behavior. We have to remember what the consequences are, or we have to know what the consequences are going to be, and whether or not those consequences are going to encourage or motivate the horse to do the behavior again in the future when we give them the aid, when we set up the antecedent. If the consequence is painful or negative, the horse is not going to be, they're not incentivized or motivated to do the behavior again. If the consequence is pleasant, they're going to be very motivated to do the behavior again. So that positivity, that C, that consequence, when it is super positive or super valuable to the horse, they are way more likely to repeat the behavior when you give them the antecedent, when you give them the aid, the cue. So A, B, and C. So what I'd like for you to do is, the takeaway from this video is to think about what C means in your training program. What are the consequences of a behavior that your horse does? And are those consequences positive or negative? And is that consequence intrinsically valuable to the horse? And if you don't know what that means, that's a great starting place. Understanding what a horse needs, wants, and values is the key to a successful training program. Because when you incorporate what a horse values into your training as the consequence, A and B are going to be way easier. And your horse is going to be eager, I promise you, eager to participate in whatever training task you have when you make C pleasurable for them. And relief from pressure or from discomfort is not something that's inherently valuable to a horse. It's not something that's pleasant. It helps them learn, and we're going to get to that. That's negative reinforcement. Negative does not mean bad. Negative means the minus sign. It means the removal of something, of some stimulus. But it's important for you to keep in mind that relief from pressure is not in and of itself inherently, I would say it's valuable to the horse, because who wants to deal with pressure? Who wants to be uncomfortable? So I would say it's valuable, but it is not pleasant. It's not what we would call an appetitive stimulus. Pressure is not an appetitive stimulus. You know what it is? Food. Food and water, friendship or companionship, safety, the possibility of reproduction, but we're not going to go there right now. So food, safety, companionship, reproductive behaviors, and what's the fifth one? There's another one. Comfort. Comfort is valuable. So so I'm just gonna hit the stop button here and say thanks for hanging in there for 10 minutes. God, I can talk. And if you want to see more of these, let me know. I'm not going to waste my time gabbing away if what I have to share is not interesting to you. But if it is, let me know. You can reach me at just send me a DM, or you can reach me. We do have a website up. It's hooharris.com, HOOHARRIS.com. I think I've got a contact form up there. So please feel free to use that if you'd like to get in touch with me. And if there's something in particular you would like me to talk about, let me know in that message and I'll get right on it. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And throwing it back to my stall and stable days. I hope you enjoyed this.